Body shot. Ooh, that hurt, didn't it?
When adrenaline starts pumping and you know what you can do with this right hand, it's hard to not do that.
Here are your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Okay, folks, no UFC this week, but we're still here to break it all down. My name is Derick G, and I am your host, and this is the Bloody Water Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and welcoming me, as always, is the New Mexico native, the Santa Fe bomber himself, the practitioner tasked with keeping Austin weird, my man. AJ, what's up, brother? How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing well, Derick. I'm doing well. You know what? I've been looking out for that Keep Austin Weird sign while I've been driving around a little bit, my man. And it's been a little hard to find. I've seen some weird things, but nothing a little weirder than Under the Bridges of California. So I'm trying to see if there's something else weird going on out here. How you been living, brother?
No, absolutely. That sounds great. I am living good, my man. Trying to beat the heat out here in good old Nevada. You know how it goes, man. I've been locked away in my nice air-conditioned, dungeon doing a bunch of film study this week on Bellator, man. And that's something that we need to talk about right off of the bat. How was the film study this week, my man? It was a little tough to get our hands on some of this film. You got some prospects, 2-0, 3-0 or whatever. You got to really, really dig, man. Normally we used to do in the UFC, but how was it this week for you?
Man, it was different this week, man. It was like bringing it back to the grassroots, to when we first started off, man. Like you said, some of these fighters have 2-0, 3-0 fights, and you're looking at fights that were, filmed a couple years ago because you just didn't necessarily have the exact same stuff or the same accessibility to their fights recently, man. It was humbling to say the least, as well as I can only imagine how it must be for the Bellator fighters to be like, kind of new to the game, kind of thrown to the dogs, but you're already on a national television, man. It must be a daunting task for them. How'd you take it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just about in the same boat, my man. And it was really interesting because it made me reflect on it and say, like, okay, man, well, if this is the number 2 promotion in the world, arguably, they say one championship got 1 billion fans or whatever. But if this is legit in the United States, this is the number 2 promotion. I mean, listen, the UFC is ahead by like a mile, you know what I'm saying? It's like they lapped them and they keep going and going and going. But that's not to say Bellator doesn't have a lot of talent, because they obviously do. It's just a little more top heavy. The UFC, they got 400, 500, 600 fighters deep. Bellator, it's just not that much. However, there's still a lot of really, really good prospects that we're here to break down. And with that being said, folks, we got a poster in the corner. No poster review this week. This doesn't really count from our UFC collection on what we're talking about and whatnot. And then anyways, for those who are listening, AJ, real quick, just describe what the hell we're looking at here, man. Mousasi versus Salter, of course, but I mean, is this a good poster to you? You like this?
Man, it reminds me of 1993 Blockbuster. You see one of these things on those little windows that they used to put up. Kind of, something easily we could have done back in middle school with paint. No, not to rag on it too hard. I'm just joking, but no, it's a little underdeveloped, I would have to say, especially coming from a thing like Showtime with the name on there, man. You'd expect a lot more than this.
Exactly, that's where I'm coming from. I'm like, you partnered up with Showtime, and this is the best you can do. I already give the UFC flag for some of the posters they're putting out because, in my opinion, one championship, they're killing the game. They got the best posters, man. It's old school, it's untraditional, but listen. Bellator, you got some work to do, my man, but here, let me take this away because that is not the point of focus here today, my man. Record recap, folks, 84-62 for me, 67 and 79 for my guy AJ, and of course, this counts, man. We got 5 bouts that we need to cover, and this counts on the record, so hopefully you came to play today, my man. But before we do any of that, let's knock out some sleepers, you feel me? So drop a like, folks, subscribe, bloodywaterpodcast.com, at Bloody Water Podcast on Instagram, and at Bloody Water Pod on Twitter. That's all the socials, but hit the website. You already know what it is. Let's knock out some sleepers, my man.
It's time for some fight night.
If you ain't paying attention, you're gonna sleep on me and I'm gonna wake you up.
You heard the king, Bobby Green himself, saying, if you sleep on me, we gonna wake you up. AJ, wake him up. Who's your first sleeper? Bellator 264.
My first sleeper, Derick, is Orlando Mendoza versus John Mcneil. Okay, Mendoza, he's a scrappy orthodox striker with a nice takedown defense, knows how to handle the pressure and lands shots in return. Really is good at firing back in the chaos. Fun fighter to watch out for. The same thing with John Mcneil. He's a very big southpaw fighter who finds more success in the striking than in takedowns. When he's feeling a little good, Mcneil likes to come out fast and swing for the fences, all right? Now, like you said before, we got a lot of fighters who are 0-0, 2-2, all that jazz. And these are their first debut in the Bellator ring for both of these fighters. And you know what that means? It's a toss-up, Derick. Anything can go down. Nothing's legitimately settled. Those nerves are pumped to a 10. Adrenaline's on high. Anything can happen when the bright lights turn up, especially with two strikers looking to make a name for themselves. And for all those reasons, that's why it's a sleeper to me. It's going to be a very exciting one. Look out for this one. It's going to be a bomber. It's the first fight of the night as well. Better pay attention. Who's your first sleeper, Derick?
All right, so I will say historically I have found Bellator events to be pretty top heavy, but when we're talking about the prelims, definitely got some sleeper action, man. A lot of people don't know who these fighters are, and especially if you don't know who these fighters are, just tune in and enjoy the show. So with that being said, my first sleeper is going to be a unconventional 142-pound catchweight bout taking place between Sebastian Ruiz and Jeffrey Glossner. Now, if you thought the leg kicks at UFC 265 were brutal, just wait till you see what this dude, Sebastian Ruiz, can put on his opponents, man. He's like a kickboxer, Muay Thai practitioner who gives off those Cody Garbrandt no love vibes because he's just styling and profiling all on his opponents, you know what I'm saying? Mid-fight, make him miss, make him pay, point over there, be like, hi, you thought you was going to hit me? All that. He's a character, man. It's really, really funny to watch. But his fight game summed up. It's comfortable and confident, man. Dude is really, really young in the game. And watch out for the kicks. You're going to get your head knocked off of your shoulders. Now, his opponent, Jeffrey Glossner, man, he is a rangy southpaw who's looking to land the big left cross so he can get in, close the distance, get you to the mat. And you know what I mean? Do the BJJ, man. You already know what time it is, or go for the ground and pound finish. He could dump you on your head, you know, very easily. But this is a very classic striker versus grappler matchup here, except Glossner can put you to sleep on the feet as well. So it's going to be a fun one, man. I think this is going to be a fun sleeper, AJ. So who is your next one?
Well, Derick, you were talking about entertainers, and that's exactly what I got for my second sleeper. All right? I got Justin Montalvo versus Kenley St. Louis, and Montalvo is exactly that. He's a performer. This dude is an amateur kickboxer and Golden Gloves amateur boxer who fights with, like I said, a little bit of that flash, and he's always looking for a highlight finish. All right, now Kenley St. Louis, he's coming into this fight off of a KO. He just got dropped. He was doing pretty good in the fight, but, you know, started throwing lazy leg kicks and got caught with a heavy right hand. But he's a still very dangerous fighter, all right? He likes to stay standing, and he himself has a heavy right hand, so sometimes he can depend on it a little bit too much, all right? Now, this is a sleeper to me because we have two strikers in a very talented 155-pound division, and they need the performance to set them apart from the crowd. Montalvo, he's always a performer, literally always looking for some flash. Like you're saying, that style where he's pointing stuff, pointing at his opponents. He's looking to make it a show. And St. Louis, he desperately needs one back after getting a KO finish like he did last time. All right. Now, this is a recipe for a fun fight. It's going to be exciting. And with these two strikers, man, another chaos factor coming into this one. You don't exactly know what's going to happen. Should be a fun one. Who's your last sleeper, Derick?
All right, folks. So if you know me, you know I love bringing in the lady fights up in here, and you know I brought it for Bellator 264. So I got a matchup between a very, very experienced Pam Sorensen facing off against Roberta Samad. And listen, man, let's just talk about Sorensen first. She's a Muay Thai BJJ fighter, but she's the definition of experienced, man. She's fought extensively in the King of the Cage and Invicta. And you know Invicta is a breeding ground for UFC fighters, especially, obviously, it's an all-female league, so female UFC fighters. But I will say she's fought UFC/Invicta vets such as Jessica Rose Clark, who she has a win over. She fought Felicia Spencer, lost that one. Shanna Young, lost that one. And she even got a win over former UFC flyweight champion Nico Montano. Now, AJ, I always tell you, it sounds so great when you got champion next to your name, but Montano just got cut from the UFC. So don't know how great that sounds in this day and age. But nonetheless, a win is a win is a win. And since she's fighting in Bellator, she could use that feather in her cap all day long. Now, needless to say, man, Sorensen is experienced. She's going to try to be a bruiser, get the fight, a bruiser. She's going to try to really steamroll her opponent, get her to the ground, finish the fight via ground and pound. Now, when we're talking about Roberta Samad, she's coming off a big PFL win back in 2019. Now, the story of her career has been she hasn't been very active, man. And that's been one of the problems, right? Sorensen's very experienced. Samad, you know, a little inexperienced to a degree. However, she's fought in Bellator before. Like I said, she's coming off a big win in PFL, and in her Bellator debut, she fought Julia Budd, who is no longer with the promotion anymore, but that is a big-time fight. Now, she's a BJJ practitioner, a real BJJ ace who is representing the Mecca of Brazil. So let's just see. This is going to be a wrestler versus grappler matchup, and the big difference here is that when Samad fought in the PFL, she fought at 155 pounds, so she's naturally the bigger fighter, moving back down to 145 pounds. Let's see. It's interesting. Normally, the wrestler is the bigger fighter, but this time the grappler is. It's going to be a ground match, folks, so just know that, but it should be fun as well. That is my last sleeper, AJ, and before we move on, I just wanted to ask you really quickly, just analysis. Let's break the fourth wall really quickly. How did you kind of go about deciding your sleepers for this Bellator card? In UFC, it's really easy because, we know a lot of the fighters, we know the styles, we know the matchups. Did you just kind of look through records and look through experience and be like, oh, this looks fun, or look through, measurables? What was it for you?
Man, this one was a little more difficult, like you were saying. I was really trying to figure out kind of styles of fighters, and hopefully the styles make the fight on this one for me personally. I was looking at, we got striker versus striker, people who are literally going to lay it all out on the table, and looking for kind of a little bit of a backstory, to be honest with you. Something a little more to fight for than just like, hey, I'm getting paid, So that's kind of really where I was looking. It was this one was a little more difficult, man. What were you looking for this week?
It's kind of the same story for me. I really like looking at the different. So I'll go on Tapology, right? And I'll go scroll through some records, scroll through how many knockouts you got, how many close fights do you have, whatever the case. Who have you fought? That's really what's important to me. Like, who have you fought? Have you fought somebody that's experienced? If so, all right, cool. Well, that brings another X factor into the matchup. But I will say for this Bellator card, it was a lot harder because there's not that many bouts on this card. And once you pick out two, and then I got to pick out two. So I'm just like, all right, we got not that much to work with. But folks, this is just, that little bit of transparency, insider information that we don't just arbitrarily scroll down prelims and just pick random fights. We actually have a method to the madness. So with that being said, those are your sleepers for Bellator 264. They're always featured live on YouTube for free. So definitely tune in, man. I mean, if you ain't got nothing else going on, the weigh-ins are happening as we were recording this right now. So the fight should be taking place tomorrow on Friday by the time this episode is dropping. So tune in, folks. Drop a like, subscribe, all the good stuff. Now, AJ, time to do what we do best, my man.
Here's to another main card breakdown, courtesy of your hosts, Derick G and AJ.
Okay, so I just want to mention, folks that are watching, you're going to notice that on this display that I have right here for our first bout of the night, I only got one image up. The other one is just blank. And the reason why is because Bellator, though they are the number 2 promotion in the United States of America, they have very little to offer in terms of media showmanship, right? They are very down on the scorecards in comparison to the UFC in this department because these dudes are using like Tapology pictures to get their fighters up there and promote them and whatnot. You partnered up with Showtime, man. Y'all got to do better. Y'all got to do better if you want to blow up more in the sport. But regardless, we're still able to find a couple of things, and believe it or not, this photo that I have here, this is a matchup. Let me open it up first. We have a middleweight contest opening up the main card here, folks, between Gwerder and Khadzhimurat Bestaev. And here's the thing. Bestaev, his last fight was on the Dana White's Contender Series, so this photo is courtesy of the UFC, believe it or not. But all that aside, the Savage Gwerder, AJ. He opens up as a -130 favorite with a +100 comeback for Haji, man. And I do need to say this is the closest betting matchup, betting comparison, betting odds on the entire main card. So this is the one that we should probably have the toughest time in picking. And I think we could do a little foreshadowing for that. So with that being said, my man, what exactly stood out to you about this bout between Haji Bestaev versus Gwerder? Did you see we just got a former Dana White Contender Series alum versus Amin Hawaiian? Like, what really did it for you to set you down the path that you needed to break this fight down? What was it?
The first thing that stood out to me, Derick, was Bestaev's height. Homeboy is tall. He's 6'6" in the 185-pound division. He's young in the game. I actually wasn't able to find out his age, like you were saying before. They're not doing their best as far as the research or putting it out there for the rest of them. Do you know how old Bestaev is?
I have absolutely no idea, man. Maybe could have found out on the Dana White Contender Series, but I couldn't even find that one. I had allegedly pirate that one to go and break down some fights, you know what I'm saying? I had to go find that thing on the dark web or whatever, but no, we have no idea. And but real quick, I'm gonna let you continue right now, but this is just one of those, it's a throwback to the nostalgia factor of just the unknown, you're fighting a dude, his weaknesses unknown, you feel me? Like that type of hype, so I love it, but keep going, my man, keep going.
But either way, Derek, he is very young in the game. He looks young. He's 6'6". He's very, very tall. And he's fought Phil Haas and Alonzo Menefield. So Bestaev is no joke. But as well, what next thing I started looking into my deep dive, man, is Gwerder. Homeboy's fighting out of Extreme Couture. So that wrestling's top notch. He fights with the other Hawaiian, Brad Tavares, and he actually fights very similar. They have very similar fight styles going forward, man. This one, once on paper, not necessarily the most exciting fight you ever think of. You think, all right, two dudes I've never really heard of. One guy got knocked out in his Dana White Contender Series loss. Okay, not really much going on. But then you start really looking into this one, man, and these dudes are some serious killers, man. Fighting out of Extreme Couture, Ty Gwerder, he maintains the pressure and stays very calm, but knows exactly when to counter-strike, all right? And then Bestaev, man, this height, he's crazy because he gets into some wild flurries and doesn't utilize his height at all. He'll just literally sit there and stand in the pocket. These sneaky little kicks he has, question mark kicks, all that jazz, man. He comes to bring it. He comes to fight. That's one thing I like about Bestaev is he is no slouch. He comes in there for some blood, whether it's his or the opponent's. It's a really interesting fight every time he steps in the ring. What was some of your big takeaways when you started doing your deep dive, Derek?
All right, man. So I did a bunch of film study on Ty Gwerder first, right? Because I was a little more familiar with Khadzhimurat personally, just watching the Contender Series and whatnot. And one thing that really stood out to me, man, is he uses a lot of this movement to set up the big left hand and his big kicks, man. He's more of those, like, I'm going to hit you with one good one as opposed to just touching you up. And that's like the Hawaiian trademark, is it not? I mean, aside from Max Holloway, that's basically the Hawaiian trademark, the big bombers, right? So I was just thinking it was really interesting because I'm like, okay, this man has LFA experience, and he has one of those things that I love to see the most out of fighters, which is basically the Giga kick, man. He's got a liver kick stoppage under his record, so he blasts the body kicks in there. So I'm just like, okay, that should be interesting in this matchup, being that you already noted Bestaev, Khadzhimurat, this man has a 5-inch reach advantage, or not reach, height advantage. Let me see, it's 6'6" to 6'1", so 5 inches in terms of the height. 6'1" in terms of Ty Gwerder, like the man doesn't even look so big, but the man is huge. Bestaev is huge, but the bigger you are, the harder you fall, man. And those body kicks might play a big role. But when you got a kicker and a bomber, like I described the style of Ty Gwerder as a striker / bomber, and that of Khadzhimurat as a kicker / like a grappler, right? So it's interesting just because this is such one of those flip-flop matches where the tall guy is probably going to try to close the distance and get the fight to the ground, and Ty Gwerder is going to try to stay out at distance and just pick you apart and land the big bomb. So it's going to be really interesting, and that's what really stood out to me for this matchup, AJ. Now, let's ask a couple of questions here because this is really what it comes down to. Do you think experience-wise, right, 5-2 Ty Gwerder, he's 1-2 in Bellator, but all of his finishes are via knockout. Now, for Khadzhimurat, he's 10-4. This is his Bellator debut, and listen, man, he's got a little more experience. You already named he's got the big names, even though they have been losses. Experience is experience. Now, being that this is Bellator, I don't have any of those stats that I normally provide, which is like striking accuracy and significant strikes per minute. Bellator, once again, I mean, come on, do better, please. However, regardless, we could still do from our film analysis a good little breakdown on how you see this fight playing out. Who takes the lead in this fight, AJ? Who's leading the dance? Who has the speed advantage and who has the power advantage to you?
Man, I'm going to say Ty Gwerder is going to be able to lead a little bit more. He's going to be trying that in and out style, whereas Bestaev, like you noted, man, he's going to try to get this one on the inside, either take it down or utilize his reach advantage, actually his height advantage, excuse me. I was looking at the reach, and Ty Gwerder technically has a longer reach, which is crazy. It's only 5.5 inches, but hey, it counts, all right? So I definitely see Ty Gwerder as the power advantage. Whereas Bestaev, he's able to be a little faster, be a little longer, and his strikes have a little bit more pop on them, at least what I was noticing. He does, like you mentioned, man, Ty Gwerder does have that very sneaky left body kick that you don't really see coming because you think he's just all about power, but he can land those sneaky body kicks going forward. But if I see this fight going down anyway, man, I see Ty Gwerder leading the dance a little bit, letting Bestaev come in, get a little angry, come in for an attack, and then counter-striking all day long. Distance management, just kind of playing the range game as far as that. Unless Bestaev does get the best of him and he's able to get that takedown, get that control, work it going that way. Bestaev, he does have some sneaky kicks himself as well. So we could see it kind of, a little bit of a kickboxing match here. But if Bestaev wants it to go his way, I definitely see him maintaining top pressure. But it's going to be hard against a dude who's coming out of Extreme Couture, man. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I would agree. The extreme couture chops on Ty Gwerder are definitely something of concern for Khadzhimurat, but I think that the height difference is going to play a big factor, and this is just my spiel on it personally. So I just think that it's really hard to hit up. You know, I always say that in these matchups, and that's one of the X factors for this matchup for me personally. Like, you can hit somebody who's your height. Normally, probably practice on somebody who's like a little bit taller or a little bit shorter than you. But a 5-inch height advantage is something that's going to be different. So I think a lot of body work is going to take place. However, the one thing that concerns me with Khadzhimurat is that he's the tallest dude I've seen not use his jab. Like, he refuses to use the jab. It's all about kicks, little teeps, little calf kicks, whatever, to keep the distance and whatnot. But I think that he's going to need to use some tool to be able to keep Ty Gwerder at bay, or at least he's going to get his chin, touched, and that's not what he wants. Now, this is really like, I'm trying to remember, AJ, because there's this fighter that we notoriously talk about who refuses to keep his chin tucked, man. He keeps his chin in the air all the time. Do you, off the top of your head, know who I'm talking about?
It's a ball guy, a boxer.
It's not Dustin Jacoby, it's not Strickland, it's regardless. If I come up with it later, I'll definitely bring it up. But he has this issue. That's Khadzhimurat's issue, man. And against Ty Gwerder, it really concerns me. However, once again, I just think that height is going to be a really, really big X factor in the experience level, man. Yes, Khadzhimurat has been knocked out a bunch, but guess what? That lends to the experience of not wanting to get knocked out again. And with all that being said, man, Ty Gwerder, we've seen it. The one place where he could really fall victim to is the volume battle, man, because he's so looking to set up the big shot. If Bestaev just picks him away with little calf kicks throughout the fight, we've seen that win fights before, man. So I think that this could be a sneaky, sneaky upset for the odds makers this time around, AJ. What do you think about that before we give our pick?
Man, I think you're correct. I think you're pretty spot on. This one is actually very hard to choose back and forth. I was going through it. I can easily see if Bestaev is on his game, bro, he's going to be doing very well. Whereas Ty Gwerder, he's a little bit more of a fighter who's, fights kind of similar. You know what I'm saying? Like, he doesn't really have high ups and downs. He's always on a very even path. And by the way, the guy we were both thinking about, I'm pretty sure it was Dusko Todorovic. Yep. That's the one. But no, I agree with you pretty much 100%, except, I'm just going to give my pick right now since we're going right into it, if you don't mind, man. Yep. I think it's going to be Ty Gwerder. I don't think necessarily Bestaev is going to show up. I got Ty Gwerder KO round 2. I think it's going to be a very back and forth first round with Ty Gwerder being able to squeeze it out in the second. What do you think?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I think Bestaev is just going to be able to keep the distance and keep his chin away from getting touched because, like I said, that 5-inch height advantage, man, your arms are only so long. They got the same reach, you can only reach so high with those big bombs, and that's what Ty Gwerder likes to throw, man. Apologies, that's a tongue twister. The Ty, the Gwe, getting that all together. But nonetheless, man, when we're looking at methods of defeat for Khadzhimurat, man, I mean, you get knocked out a bunch. I don't know, man. I got to go with my gut on this one, so I'm going to roll with Khadzhimurat. And with that being said, we can move on to the next one, AJ. Now, we got some heavyweights in this one, AJ. And once again, only got one photo. We got Davion Franklin, who's actually number 7 ranked in the Bellator rankings, man. So rankings do come into play for this entire event. But he's fighting a sneaky, undefeated 15-0 Emerett Cummings, man. And once again, when we're talking about film study, I had to really dig. And I was able to find a little something, an outdoor event for Emerett Cummings. But nonetheless, man, we got a bomber, a top control specialist, a first round gas machine in Davion Franklin, all day Davion Franklin versus Emerett Cummings, who is 2-0 in Bellator. Listen, man, this is really interesting to me because you have an older southpaw in Emerett Cummings, a big boy, not the most fit type of guy, but he's one of your more traditional heavyweights as opposed to Davion Franklin, AJ. Does he give you just the slightest bit of like DC vibes, Daniel Cormier vibes?
Yeah, 100%, man. Like a younger, crazier Daniel Cormier, maybe Daniel Cormier when he was in college, 100%, man. And Emerett Cummings gives me, I just had him. The Big Country, Roy Nelson.
Roy Nelson, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It's like two younger DC versus Roy Nelson going at it, man. This one's going to be fun.
Yeah, definitely. So Davion Franklin, he opens up as a minus 245 favorite, plus 195 comeback for Emerett Cummings. And I think that the line is as such because this is a heavyweight contest and anything can happen in the heavyweight division, right? Now, AJ, Davion Franklin, I'm sure you've seen, he only has 3 fights, right? And in those 3 fights, he's notorious for, he goes all out in the first round. By the time the second hits, he might not got nothing left. It worked out in his favor in his second fight, the only fight that he's had that has gone to a decision and actually ended up being a technical decision, because he basically gassed himself out. He was able to maintain top control, and when he was fighting this dude, Hilton is his last name, punched him in the back of the head. He couldn't continue, but luckily it went to the 3rd round, so it got marked as a technical decision, and Davion Franklin got the win. If that didn't go that way, I don't know if he would have won the fight. But with that being said, man, this is a dude who is very athletic, throws sneaky athletic kicks in the whole entire 9. And he reminds me a little bit in his wide stance of like a Deontay Wilder, over there looking for just the big bombs, man. So let me just ask you, in this heavyweight contest where anything goes, man, give me the odds of the dark horse, the unknown Emerett Cummings. What are his chances of pulling off an upset here?
Pretty good, actually, man. They're both very naturally skilled. If I had to look at this going forward, man, both of these fighters, they're not so deep in their training that they have already taken out of their comfort zone. They've been trained to not do the things that they normally naturally want to do. Both these fighters are very, very natural, very orthodox, or maybe not orthodox, the word I'm looking for, but very in their own. So, what that leads to, man, Davion Franklin, he's very slow and methodical, and he'll blitz in. Emerett Cummings, man, this dude is a heavy wrestling pressure. So not necessarily, I don't think Emerett Cummings is going to be able to get a KO, but he will be able to, if he's able to withstand the first round, he's going to be able to outwork the guy, man. He knows how to be able to stay long, or to stay inside the match long enough to where the gas tank starts to become an issue. That's really where I see Emerett Cummings having the best of luck going forward, is that he's able to outgrind Davion Franklin going forward and really make it, drag him into deep waters and make it that kind of match where it's 2 big boys just trying to get heavy top pressure and maintaining aggression. I don't know. What do you think? How do you see this one playing out if Emerett Cummings is able to get the dub?
Well, one thing that I think that's interesting about Emerett Cummings that I saw is that he was fighting some regional fight, like I said, it was some outdoor fight. And, the fight opens up and then he gets top control. He lands on top, he immediately gets reversed, put on his back. And I was just like, oh, man, this isn't good for him. And he, the display that he put on went to show that he didn't have much off of his back until one thing, led to another. The man got the rear naked choke, finish, bow, done. You know what I'm saying? So, he has the ability to finish opponents off of his back. He has the ability to stay in the fight on his back. But this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you, AJ. We often see these grapplers, man, very comfortable off their back, perhaps too comfortable off their back. And real quick, AJ, just turn me down in the monitors just a little bit. But we often hear these grapplers, we see them just be a little too comfortable off their back as if it's a BJJ match as opposed to an MMA match. Now, when you're fighting a dude like Davion Franklin who throws everything with bad intentions, do you think it's even a good idea to entertain, oh, let me get on my back really quickly and try to do some jiu-jitsu, even in the first, second round? I feel like that's not something you could do till the 3rd round until the power is completely zapped out of Franklin's arm. The lactic acid is completely built up, because to me, that's a recipe for failure right there, man. That's a recipe for getting your face smashed into the canvas, because that is what Franklin is trying to do. He's not trying to punch you. He's trying to punch a hole through the canvas once he punches your face, man. So just what do you think? Do you think Cummings should even entertain the grappling in this one?
Hell no, Derick. I think Cummings should stay away and maintain distance as much as possible, man. If the crazy thing about Davion Franklin is, his gas tank's going to go, but if he's in there and they're heavyweights, man, he always has the potential to knock you out. So the same thing is sort of like a Derek Lewis, where he's not necessarily the most talent-rich fighter. He very, very much so has his ones and his twos and his things he likes, but he's always has that power, man. He can always do that. Whereas Emerett Cummings, he really needs to be comfortable, I guess not necessarily on the ground. He needs to be more comfortable maintaining top pressure. You know what I'm saying? This dude cannot allow Davion Franklin to get a little bit of control, because once he does, it's going to be the Franklin show all day long, man.
Yeah, I mean, all day is the nickname for a reason, man. Let me ask you this really quickly. It's the last question before we give our pick on this one, AJ. I just want to know, in your opinion, do you think as a fighter, right? And obviously, this is an opinion piece right here. This is us just speculation. You're a high level. You're in Bellator. That is high level, if you ask me. Davion Franklin, He's won all three of his fights. Even that close call in that second fight that he had, man, at what point do you say, all right, man, I can't blow my wad in the first round? Because it feels like he just hasn't learned that lesson. Like, he just keeps blowing the wad, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, well, hopefully we win. But at what point in your career do you start taking yourself seriously and start taking your career seriously and saying, all right, I got to have a different strategy if I want to get to the top of the top? Yeah, this is working at 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, but will this work at 10-0? Will I even get to 10-0? Just give me your thoughts on that one. Do you think it actually takes a loss? Like, a lot of these fighters, it seems like it's just you have to learn the hard way. But what are your thoughts on that?
Unfortunately, I do think it. You have to learn this one the hard way. I mean, if you're smart about it, you already know in your head, man, I got to get a better gas tank. I got to be able to do this. I can't blow, like you said, blow my wad first round. But usually, more often than not, you always perform to your level of your lowest training. You know, everybody, we like to practice like crazy. We like to do all this stuff like crazy, but we always, whenever the adrenaline starts pumping, we revert back to what is most comfortable, what is most known. And for him, what's most known is just that lull him in and blitz on people. So I definitely think, unfortunately, for most fighters anyway, I know a lot of the time it takes an L. You know, it takes your lowest loss. It takes really getting beat up, getting drug into that deep water and realizing, man, you're quitting on yourself more than anything. I hope it doesn't be that way for Davion Franklin, but it seems to be more often than not the case, whereas that's when you learn a lesson, when you really give up and you've really had to do a deep dive on yourself and realize, like, oh, shit, man, I'm the one that lost this fight, because if I would have just not done this and that and this, then I would have been able to keep going. I would have had the gas tank, all the X's and O's would have been in line. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but I do think a lot of the time it does come to just taking that L on yourself and realizing it then. I know a lot of people, you can always tell people what to do. You can always coach them into saying this, and really try to hit the hammer home. But a lot of the time it really does take some self-evaluation. And unfortunately in fighting, that self-evaluation comes in the second and third rounds when a dude's punching you in the face and you really can't do anything about it. You're trying, you just feel like, all right, hit me with the rear naked. Let me tap, man. Come on, be nice about it. What do you think, Derick?
Well, no, I'd absolutely agree with you, man. The one difference that I have in this one is that, listen, if you're Davion Franklin, you're training at Jackson Wink's Academy out there in the great state of New Mexico, man. So you got really legit athletes around you, man. Hopefully somebody would have been like, hey, bro, maybe you should try to fix this up in your game. I don't know. I just think with fighters, man, a lot of the fighters will tell you, hey, man, well, why don't you get in here and you try it? And it's like, listen, man, we just trying to help you out. That's all we saying here. I get it. It's a tough thing, man. I'm not saying it's easy by any stretch of the imagination, but you got to do the work if you want to be able to be the best of the best, man. Like Khabib says it himself, man. Got to make sacrifices if you want to be the greatest. So I don't know if that's what Davion Franklin wants, but I do know, that the man is on a tear. He is winning and he's knocking out everybody in his path. The last question that I have, I just want a quick response before we give our pick, AJ. You don't get to 15-0 for no reason, man. You have to be a gritty individual to get to 15-0 in professional mixed martial arts, and that is exactly what Emerett Cummings, the plus 195 underdog, is. Do you think that that 15-0 experience, which is 12 more fights and 12 more victories than Davion Franklin has on his record, do you think that is going to play a large factor in the outcome of this fight? And then give me your pick on the fight, AJ.
I think it could. I think it really could. A lot of the 15-0 fights or a lot of the 15 fights that Emerett Cummings has haven't necessarily been amongst the deepest of talent. So it could come into play, especially the fact that he has a lot of round 1 and 2 finishes, man. That's the thing. Emerett Cummings, he's been able to get these people out pretty quick, as well as he depends a lot on his weight. He depends a lot on being that bully, being like how I said his name before.
Heavyweight?
Big Country. How Big Country likes to use how he used to do the same thing, man. He would just literally lay on people. And the same thing with Emerett Cummings. He'll just lay on people and punch them until they submit or punch them until the ref stops. So I do think it could be coming into fruition, but it's going to be able to tell, or at least we're going to be able to see if it's real or his past has been real deal, or if Davion Franklin is the real deal opponent that we need to see him fight against for Emerett Cummings, man. What do you think?
Well, I think that, like I said, experience comes, you have to sacrifice to get the experience ultimately. And I do think it's going to play a factor in terms of the deep rounds 2 and 3, if it does get there. Because even if you have been getting your opponents out of there, excuse me, folks, you should still be able to use that experience, rely on it, that grittiness of like, I've been almost finished before. Now I just turned it around and I ended up getting the finish. Like I said, it was the fight that I was watching where Emerett Cummings, he got his position reversed. It was a terrible spot, man. It looked like the fight was going to be finished. Next thing you know, he was able to get to the feet and reverse it and do this and get the choke in. So, like, that's where I'm talking about. Davion Franklin hasn't experienced the real adversity to grit through these fights yet in his career. I personally don't think so. So I think it'll be fun to watch. However, I'll just start off with my pick, AJ. I'm going Davion Franklin, knockout round 1. I don't think it gets to the late rounds, man. But if it did, I do think Emerett Cummings would definitely have an experience advantage, have that to rely on. But I think Davion Franklin, man, he's just too athletic in that first round. He's such a problem because he looks small, but he's not very small. He's 6'2", man. The man is huge. In terms of a heavyweight, it's not the biggest heavyweight. Very athletic, throws crazy kicks, crazy little karate side up kicks and all that craziness. You know what I'm saying? I know you're a fan, AJ, and give me your pick. Who you rolling with?
Yeah, man, I think I'm right with you, man. I think Davion Franklin, he's the more talented fighter, whereas Cummings, he's the more experienced. The tools look sharper for Davion, whereas Cummings, like I said, utilizes his weight and his wrestling skills. So it's going to be hard to do that against another big dude who's also a very good wrestler coming out of Jackson Wink like Franklin. But I'm going Davion Franklin, KO round 2. I think he's going to be able to get it done. It's going to be an interesting round 1. We'll see if he gets it done then, but I definitely think it's going to come in the second round, man. Davion Franklin, KO round 2.
Okay, I mean, I'm surprised that you think it'll even go 2, man, because Davion Franklin, he really starts to, teeter off once round 1 is over. But I will say, man, one thing that would make it maybe a little more assuring for me, if I just had more information on Cummings, man. It's hard. You don't know what gym he trains out of. You don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of little intangibles about the Emerett Cummings, excuse me, that is very important. But we'll move on. Okay, AJ, now we got ourselves a real deal contest here. And I just got to say, once again, on the picture issue here, man, Raufeon Stots, number 4 in the world in the Bellator rankings, right? But doesn't even have a headshot on ESPN. That is a little disappointing to me. Disrespectful because the man is very talented. He has a lot of big wins on his record. And he's on like a 9-fight win streak or something crazy like that, man. Or an 8-fight win streak, excuse me. However, that win streak might come to an end because we got a bantamweight contest between Magomed Magomedov and Raufeon Stots, man. The Tiger and Magomedov, super Raufeon Stots, man. The minus 400 favorite in Magomedov is a minus 400 favorite for a big reason. This dude is a killer, and I don't know, because all of these dudes are coming out of a similar geographic area, in my opinion, right? Like Magomedov trains out of Dag fighters, so clearly with the Dagestani boys, you know. But I don't know the Makhachevs versus Nurmagomedovs versus Magomedovs, you know. I don't know the relation necessarily, but they all fight very similar. You feel me? Like Magomedov to me fights a little bit like kind of like a Saeed Nurmagomedov, you know what I mean? Like he has those crazy kicks, but you know what the goal is, AJ. Let me ask you, because this is transparent, everybody should know. What is the game plan of a Magomed Magomedov?
Yeah, I know. I agree with you, Derick. I think he fights a lot more like a Saeed Nurmagomedov than anyone else. And actually, the crazy thing, man, he's 1-1 with Peter Yan. That's how talented Magomedov is, dude. This dude is crazy. But if I see this fight going down anyway, man, I think it's going to be Magomedov just picking apart shots from range for the very start of it and getting up close, putting that backpack on him and literally not allowing an inch of space like he does, man. He's a very talented fighter. Like you said, he's fighting out of Dag fighter. So that wrestling style or that Sambo style is amazing. That grappling is crazy. But the crazy thing is, man, Magomed, he throws some very flashy kicks and he's cracks, bro. He's got some crack on him. The only thing is, fighting Raufeon Stots, man, Super Stots, homeboy as well, is basically the same kind of fighter. They have the same kind of style, very strong grappling pressure from Stots. He's able to do the same thing where he doesn't allow an inch of movement or an inch of space between that backpack. He's literally, when he's on top, and those hips stay heavy, does everything like he's supposed to. But if I see this fight going anyway, man, I think it's going to be a little bit of back and forth in the first round, maybe the first minute or so, and then Magomedov just taking over, man, like he does, man. If he's able to get that back pressure or to get that back mount or any kind of top pressure at all, man, he's just going to be running and gunning from the game plan, man. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, so I like your assessment, but you didn't answer my question. I just want to give me it a simple, in a one-liner. What is the game plan of Magomed Magomedov, right? Because I wanted to use this as a further analogy for the fighters, these DAG fighters, right? Just like one word.
One sentence game plan for Magomedov: get the back, beat him up.
Okay, I was gonna say simple, smash. That's all these dudes do, man. They smash their fighters. That's it. And that's the thing about Magomedov, which is why every fight that you watch from the man isn't the most exciting. It's because, the flashy kicks for a little bit will open it up. I'll make it seem like I'm gonna strike with you. I'm gonna lure you into a striking contest. Immediately shoot for the body lock, shoot for the double leg, get you to the ground, and then just smash and keep you there for the rest of the round, man. It's like Islam Makhachev to a degree, you know what I'm saying? But like I said, with the flashy kicks of the Saeed Nurmagomedov. Nonetheless, man, you already mentioned it. Raufeon Stots, he's a NCAA D2 champion / All-American, man. So the wrestling chops are legit. However, there's a reason why the man is a plus 300 underdog, AJ. Like, I think the odds makers just clearly see that Magomedov is a problem in the bantamweight division. And being such a big problem, you're right. He has a win over Peter Yan. He has a loss over Piotr Yan. And I just think that, AJ, man, that is such a big thing to have on your record, because even though Yan isn't the current champion right now, we understand the talent, the capabilities of a Piotr Yan. And a Raufeon Stots, though he is 16-1, though he is 4-0 in Bellator, though the man is on a hell of a tear, man, he has not fought anybody of that caliber, man. I will say he does have a big win over Levi Miles, who is a training partner, who was once a training partner of Cody the Bison Freeman over there at Fitness Fight Factory, training under Johnny Bedford and whatnot, man. So that's a big win, because Levi Moles is a legit BJJ guy, and for Raufeon Stots to get that win goes to show you could do the striking, you could do the BJJ. He is a brown belt, man. Does any of that even give you any pause in the outcome of this fight, though? Like, does anything that I could say for Raufeon Stots? You already said you think that it might be close for a round, but is there anything where you're like, this area really concerns me? Like, what is Raufeon Stots' best path to victory in your opinion?
It's hard to say, Derek, because when I was doing my research on him, man, everything Raufeon Stots was really good at, Magomed Magomedov was even better at. It's everything that he's so skilled at, that wrestling pressure, all that stuff. What's going to be interesting, though, is we're going to be able to see the difference between American wrestling and Dagestani grappling, man. It's that's what excites me most. And usually, the best, man. I'm a fan of the striking. I like to see a striking battle going forward, but this one's going to be very interesting to see how those two styles play out. If I could say anything that kind of gave me a little bit of hesitation towards the fact that maybe Raufeon Stots is going to be a little bit better in this one, man, is he has a very sneaky left hand, man. He'll hit you out of nowhere when you're coming in, and he'll crack you very, very literally out of nowhere. He has the timing down perfectly, and he maintains that good pressure. So as far as two pressure guys going at it, it's going to be interesting to mix them up to see how it all unfolds. Arguably, you can argue back and forth who's stronger at their technique. I definitely think it's Magomedov, but it's the argument's there. Don't get me wrong. Raufeon Stots, he's very, very talented in a very talented division of 135 pounds. But it's going to be interesting to see how the wrestling goes forward, man. What do you think? Do you give any sort of hesitation to see if Raufeon Stots can get it done in any of his techniques?
I think that Raufeon Stots has the power advantage on the feet, personally, man. I think that left hand is absolutely no joke, and he has this southpaw version of what Robert Whittaker throws, where he throws the right cross and the right roundhouse right over the top, right? So Raufeon Stots can throw the same exact thing, except it's on the left side because he's a southpaw, and he's just laser quick, man. Likes to fight in this boxing range, which might not be advantageous in this fight because you don't want to get taken down immediately, so you might have to be a little more hesitant. But there's one thing about Magomedov that concerns me, is that he likes to pick his shots. He's not a crazy volume guy, right? Like he likes to be accurate, and he throws these crazy shots, man. Like he throws that it's like a hand plant kick, you feel me? You plant your hand on the ground and then you just throw your whole entire body. Like he throws those, so he's so confident with his striking. I don't know if he can be that confident against a legit striker like Raufeon Stots. He might have to be a little more conservative, a little more hesitant, and just play it safe if he really wants to get the win. Because if there's one path to victory for Raufeon Stots that I could actually see happening, it's just timing Magomedov on a shot. You know what I'm saying? He's going to shoot in. He wants to get you to the ground and smash. Well, what are you going to do to avoid that? Throw that uppercut. He has a beautiful multiple knees out the clinch. I don't know what it's going to be. He could try to utilize some of that wrestling, man, but I think that, listen, the wrestler with the technical kicks and Magomedov might be too much for the kickboxer wrestler and Raufeon Stots. Nonetheless, man, that left cross, like you said, it's a problem, and we're definitely going to have to keep it into consideration. You cannot rule that out in this contest. But with that being said, AJ, give me your pick and why.
Man, this one, like I said, it's going to be a great wrestling showdown. If I agree with you, Derick. If Raufeon Stots wants a win, he's going to need to get a finish. I don't necessarily see it happening, though. So I'm going Magomed Magomedov by decision. I got the Tiger, just literally putting it to him like always, man. Just literally putting a backpack on him. And Raufeon Stots isn't known for his finishing KO power. So I definitely think this one's going to a decision. I got the Tiger anyway. Magomed Magomedov by decision. Who you got and why, Derick?
Yeah, I just don't think Raufeon Stots is going to be able to stay off of his back, man. I think Magomedov, once he gets you there, like I said, he'll keep you there the entire round. So it could be a long night at the office for Stots, man, but let it be a learning lesson regardless, you know. But MMA is a crazy sport, and anything can happen. And like I said, you got to get that just one-hitter quitter. Might get it done, maybe a little bit more. Maybe he just comes out and starches him. You never know. But I'm going Magomedov. I'm going to decision win as well. I think it's just going to be a grind-out victory. And this is kind of a camp rivalry, right? Just a good showdown for camps. We got Dag Fighter versus Rufus Sport. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I don't know, man. You got a very good two camps going head-to-head in this one. But like I said, I'm going Magomedov, so we're in unison on that one, AJ. And now we move on to our co-main. But before we do that, drop a like, subscribe, all of the good stuff, folks. You already know what time it is. BloodyWaterPodcast.com coming at you live. And listen, drop some comments and all that good stuff, man. We always replying to the good folks at home, man. Love the interaction. And without you, there would be no us. So we appreciate you. However, we have a hell of a co-main event on our hands, AJ. Now we got a real deal welterweight contest between Andrey Koreshkov versus Sabah Homasi, number 10 ranked Sabah Homasi, man. And the sleek chic, man, while he didn't have the greatest UFC run, 0-3, actually, the man is experienced. He's a good boxer, and he could drop some hands on you. But Andrey Koreshkov, man, this is a switch fighter, 6 feet tall, 76-inch reach, and master of sport in ARB, AJ. That is Army hand-to-hand combat. I did not know such a thing existed, but I love to see it. Listen, I'm just going to just one more time, man. In America, can we get some master of sport over here? All these people, they're trying to train their whole life at these sports and whatnot. At least let them be proficient in that. Give them some certification. But nonetheless, man, dude, Koreshkov, the kicks are nasty, bro. He throws the spinning kicks. He can throw kicks from either side. He can throw rear leg, front leg, whatever. It does not matter. But do you think, here's my question to you, because I'm going to open it up. I guess I should say the odds too. Minus 335 favorite is Koreshkov, plus 260 comeback for Sabah Homasi. Sabah Homasi was on like a 4-fight win streak prior to his last loss against Paul Daly, man. And one thing we know about Homasi is he's a good wrestler, and he likes to smother you and just smash your face, you feel me? Knock you out with that boxing. Do you think he's going to allow Koreshkov the space to be able to get off all of those beautiful technical spinning techniques?
If Homasi's smart, man, not at all. Like that's the very dangerous thing about Koreshkov. And what, like you said, man, very dangerous kicks. He likes to throw the head kick from the jump. But what he also has is Koreshkov, he also has a very sneaky jab, man. So if he's able to utilize that jab, I see him maintaining distance. But if Homasi's smart, he's going to get in the inside, put him down, put Koreshkov on his back, and literally start the wrestling game plan like he likes, man. Especially fighting out of American Top Team. He's a very good wrestler, knows how to get pressure. And what I like most about this dude, about Homasi, man, he's gritty. He doesn't give a fuck who he's fighting. He's literally like whoever, like, even in when he was in the Ultimate Fighter, he was going at the current 170-pound champ, man, Kamaru Usman. He was like, oh, we'll fight, whatever, man. He also fought Abdul Razak Al Hassan twice. I mean, he got KO'd twice, but he said the first one was a fluke. Went and proved the second one wasn't a fluke. But either way, man, I like that Homasi's gritty, and he's in there for the fight. That's one thing about Homasi, man. You got to give it to him. This dude is down to scrap, and he's a very, very good wrestler. So you know he's going to be able to try to get on the inside. He even had Paul Daly hurt in his last fight until he got finished. But if Homasi's smart, he's going to be looking to get on the inside, put that wrestling pressure on, and do the same thing that we were talking about before with Magomed, and just put it to you and smash, man. That's his game plan, and if it works out well, it's going to work out nice. Because Koreshkov, he's not the best on his back. showed he can wrestle. He does have really good wrestling against the Rodriguez fight, but the fight before that, he completely got out grappled, man. So if Homasi has a path to victory, it's putting Koreshkov on his back and getting to work, man. What do you think? How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I'm going to say something that we're going to have to take into consideration here is that Andrey Koreshkov is not just any average Joe, right? This is the former welterweight champion in the Bellator, in Bellator, the former welterweight division champion. And listen, man, this is a dude who's tied with Douglas Lima for most bouts in welterweight history in Bellator with 17, man. Very, very experienced. So is Sabah Homasi, man. But Koreshkov is a whole nother set of problems you got to solve. And there is one issue that I think Koreshkov has that Sabah Homasi will be able to take advantage of, which is, being that you throw the big kicks, you have a pretty wide stance, right? And Sabah Homasi has mean calf kicks, bro, that he goes to. He goes to the well with those calf kicks. Even in the regional scene, when they, he kind of, he's a journeyman. He's an MMA journeyman. He's fought in a bunch of different promotions. And even in those smaller scale promotions, he's coming out banging as if it's a UFC fight. Like, the man comes to fight every single time. That's one thing you got to give credit to Sabah Homasi about. Now, I think that this is going to be one of those matchups where Andrey Koreshkov is saying, like, all right, man, my last fight wasn't in Bellator, you know what I mean? So I'm going to have to come in here. I'm going to have to really prove something because I'm trying to get in those rankings, get right back up to another title shot, man. Get it back into the welterweight real deal title mix, man. So listen, man, you already said it best, AJ. You said Koreshkov has a sneaky jab, but it's not just a jab. It's like he keeps the lead hand out there and then can just pump it, you know what I mean? So like he uses it with the feints, but I think he also uses it to gauge distance. And that's the reason why he's got 12 knockouts of his 23 wins. 12 of them are knockouts, man. Being able to do it on both sides, right? So southpaw, same active lead hand. Orthodox, active lead hand. So like those are the scariest fighters to me because it doesn't matter. They can give you a million different looks. And if you're not prepared for all of them, it's going to be a long night at the office, man. I say it all of the time. Now, the other issue, AJ, is the same thing with Magomedov, man. Koreshkov is not a high-volume fighter, and that's the detriment of a lot of these fighters, man. And Sabah Homasi might be able to take advantage, but we know one thing. As the fight goes longer, Homasi gets less and less technical. Koreshkov stays pretty disciplined, and he could wrestle really well, so the wrestling will probably come to a stalemate on this one. Overall, I think Koreshkov has more weapons than Sabah Homasi, personally, right? I don't think that's an unfair thing to say, but I do say that Sabah Homasi has the advantage of being unpredictable and chaotic, man. He can throw a crazy flying knee out of nowhere. Those overhand bombs, when you're used to, all right, you're going to duck under the hook, you're going to slip the jab, you're going to, you're used to the technical, all that, right? When you're Sabah Homasi and you're just winging shots, no one trains for that. No one trains for a big, just overhand coming over the top. Like, you try to train for something a little more technical. So I think that's one of the main reasons why this is going to be a really interesting co-main. Gritty Sabah Homasi, very technical Andrey Koreshkov. And AJ, man, unless you got something else to, talk about, maybe the lateral movement of Homasi, I don't know. But unless you do, give me a pick and how you see this fight going out, man.
Yeah, I definitely think Sabah Homasi, he's very experienced. He's also very talented. He's definitely got, he has a chance to win this one. But me personally, man, I'm going Koreshkov by decision. I think Koreshkov just has too many tools in the tool belt, and he can do them from both sides. Whereas Homasi, he's very dangerous, with the wrestling, very dangerous with the smash. But, it's a little more one-sided unless, like you said, he starts just winging shots left and right, which can happen. But sometimes a lot of the time what happens when somebody starts just winging shots like crazy, the technician just goes to work and hits you quicker down the pipe. So I think it's going to be Koreshkov. I don't think he's going to be able to finish Homasi. We'll see. But I got Koreshkov by decision. Who you got, Derick, and why?
So once again, like I said, I just think Homasi gets less and less technical as the fight goes on. I think that's going to be his detriment because as those winging shots start getting put out there, you already said it, the technical capabilities of Koreshkov, I think he'll just be picking them apart as the fight goes on, especially second and third round. But I'm going to differ. I'm going to go with the finish here. I think Andrey Koreshkov gets the finish done, and I think he does some type of crazy spinning back kick, whatever, third round, just drop him with the liver shot, something like that, man. I think he's going to try to attack the body because, you can move the head, but it's really hard to move that body, man. So Andrey Koreshkov with the TKO finish for me. He does have a 3-inch reach advantage and same in height, man. But overall, more experienced, Andrey Koreshkov coming back for that Bellator gold, my man. Come on, let's rock. And all right, AJ, here it is, man. It's the main event. This is one where I'm gonna be honest with you, AJ. Once you start getting to these points in the Bellator cards and you got these big names here, even though you got the champion, Gegard Mousasi, the Dreamcatcher, man. Come on. We got 47-7, 5-1 in Bellator. Opens up as a -350 favorite against the underdog. The +275 comeback for number 1 ranked John Salter. But even though you have number 1 put next to your name, I don't think that you got much to offer in the category of defeating Gegard Mousasi. Talk about experienced, AJ. Is there a better example? If you looked up in the dictionary and you popped that thing open and you went down to the E's and you hit experience, I think Gegard Mousasi's picture pops up, right? I think that's the only thing that pops up. Could you name a fighter more experienced than Gegard Mousasi?
Oh man, more experience is hard because Gegard has literally fought in almost every single division, every single organization out there, man. This dude, and one of the crazy things about Gegard, he left the UFC on dubs. Mm-hmm. Like he literally was on a winning streak and was like, you know what, Bellator's gonna pay me more, whatever, I'll take that. Like he's one of the only fighters that has left the UFC not in shame, man. Gegard is absolutely a killer and a longtime vet, man. It's hard to go against him, man, personally.
Yeah, absolutely, man. He's a pressure counter striker / grappler, and it's just, in my opinion, it's really hard to get past his style because he's so patient, man. He's just waiting. Everything you hit me with, I'm just going to hit you with a little bit more. I'm going to edge you out on the points. I'm going to control you on top. The way that he was able to just handle Douglas Lima was very similar to the way that whoever Lima just fought, he just lost his belt. It could have been Vadim Nemkov or something like that, man, but that might be a weight class too high. Nonetheless, man, Douglas Lima, he just got pretty manhandled in his last fight, very similar to the way that Gegard Mousasi put it on him, and the way that Gegard Mousasi puts it on a lot of people, man. He got a huge win. Like, let's talk notable wins really quickly, right? Vitor Belfort, TKO round 2. Chris Weidman, TKO round 2. That's 2 champions right there. Dan Henderson, TKO round 1. 3 champions. Ilir Latifi, unanimous decision. It's hard to get that man out of there, man, but that's still a big win. And then Uriah Hall, TKO round 1, man. And, you know, Uriah Hall's still mad about that Mousasi knockout. He still wants to run that one back, but the man is a champion for a reason. He's on a 2-fight win streak. His last loss has come to Lovato Jr. Why am I blanking on the first name? Rafael. Maybe? Yeah, Rafael Lovato Jr. And believe it or not, that is actually both of these fighters' last loss. It's to the same fighter for... It looks like a majority decision for Gegard Mousasi and a submission round 3 for John Salter. And believe it or not, John Salter is the BJJ guy, man, so that's very impressive. But we know Lovato is an ace in the BJJ department. Nonetheless, AJ, man, on the feet, we know I don't think Salter has anything for Mousasi on the feet because that's the game plan. He's a grappler. He wants to get you to the ground and either ground and pound you for a finish or look for the submission. But everywhere John Salter is good, I think Gegard Mousasi is probably better, man. You know what I mean? He reminds me, you know who he reminds me of? And I don't even want this to be like an ethnic thing or anything like that because it's not necessarily, it's more of a fight style. But Gegard Mousasi reminds me a lot of Benny Dariush, you know what I mean? Or I should say Benny Dariush reminds me of Gegard Mousasi, you know, where they're just, you know, Gegard Mousasi won't wing as the crazy hooks like Benny Dariush does as much, you know, but he's much more technical in this latter stage of his career, you know, he's patient, technical, and he can just smash you and smother you, right? So I think that's how this fight is going to play out, but convince me otherwise, AJ. How is this not going to be a huge favorite type, you know, decision for Mousasi? He's a -350 favorite, man. There's very little to talk about ultimately aside from the BJJ of Salter, but give me your assessment.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's a little hard because Gegard Mousasi is so well-talented and so well-rounded, but John Salter, he might not have the name, but this dude is very talented. He was beating up Rafael Lovato Jr. until he got tapped, you know, and until maybe not beating up, he was out grappling Rafael Lovato Jr. until he made a small mistake, and then believe it was armbar, rear naked choke, round 3, and it took him to round 3, man. He was doing really good in round 1 and 2 against him, but he ended up losing the fight. Salter, this dude, he's very methodical and patient on the ground. It can get him into trouble, kind of sort of how we've seen like a Ryan Hall, you know, be a little bit more methodical. Obviously, in Ryan Hall's last fight, that wasn't necessarily the problem, but he's very, very patient. The problem with John Salter, he does slow down after round 1. And he might not have the name, but he's a very legit fighter. And if he's able to get you on the ground, I expect him to actually be able to out-grapple Gegard Mousasi, man. I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds wild, but that is what John Salter is really, really good at, is being able to control people on the ground. get that BJJ grappling going, and really start putting people to work, man. Put them in positions that they're really uncomfortable being in, and kind of go from there. Kind of work the tap or work the ground and pound, however he's going to be able to do it, get it done that way on the ground. Like I said, very methodical and patient. Now, can he get that done against Gegard Mousasi? Put Gegard in a position that he's never been in before. It's really hard when somebody's that experienced and that talented. I do believe Gegard has the skills on the feet as well as the skills on the ground, but the skills on the ground are a lot closer than we're giving a little bit of credit for John Salter, man. If he's able to get this done, I do see an early finish on like a crazy submission, something we haven't seen, something that's kind of unpredictable when they're still dry, when they're still able to grab each other and hold on. That's how I see it playing out. But other than that, man, I definitely think Mousasi has the skills needed to be able to put him away on any other aspect of the fight. What do you think?
I mean, you just made some pretty bold statements right there, man, talking about Salter being able to out-grapple Gegard Mousasi. Like, my thing is, what happens, AJ, hypothetically, and this isn't really hypothetically, I think this is how it's going to play out, where John Salter somehow, some way gets on top of Gegard Mousasi, but what happens when Gegard Mousasi reverses position? He gets on top, man. It's like an anaconda, man. It's very going to be smothering style. I think it's going to be interesting to think about, man. Good thought experiment, but I think Gegard Mousasi is just going to be a little bit too much. I do respect the grappling chops of John Salter. You can't not respect it because he's a very fast-paced fighter, man. He comes out and he brings it all round 1 and round 2, but that lends to, hey, this is a 5-round fight, and come round 3 of most of John Salter's fights, gets real lazy, man. Them arms get real low, real tired, and it's hard to have that same output that you had, in rounds 1 and round 2, especially when you're such a wrestling, grappling heavy exchange, But I will say that Gegard Mousasi, in terms of the stand-up, because that's where I think he's going to want to keep this fight ultimately, this dude has a Jose Aldo-esque like knack for checking kicks, man. Like, he doesn't take a lot of damage to his legs, which is going to be very important. And he like slowly, I don't remember who it was. It could have been Big John McCarthy, or it could have been Josh Thompson, but they said this, and I thought it was so beautifully represented how Gegard Mousasi fights. It says he crushes space between his opponent, and he will slowly cut off the ring until he reaches that boxing range to nullify the opponent's offense. And it's very true. Like, just crushing space, just that thought process of like, he just slowly but surely just creeping in front of you until you're right there in boxing range, until he knows he can hit you and you can't hit him, because he has this also like, I don't know, it's like a superpower, man. This is the way that I view it. I think this is just the experience. He has great vision. And what I mean by that is he just sees the shots coming, That's often where you're in the biggest sense of danger, right, AJ, is when you get hit by something that you don't see coming, right?
Oh yeah, 100%. Man, those are the ones that put you away, where you wake up and go, what did he hit me with?
Yeah, exactly.
What was that?
Yeah, no, for sure, man. So I think that, I don't see that this fight playing out as like a crazy stand-up match, because Salter's going to do everything in his power to try to get this fight to the ground. But I do think that John Salter does get a little overwhelmed when he has heavy pressure applied towards him. You know what I mean? And that is what Gegard Mousasi does. He makes you fight his fight. He walks forward. What does Adrian Yanez say? He says, no, I don't get knocked out. I do the knocking out. That's Gegard Mousasi. He said, I walk forward. I don't get walked down. And but even if John Salter can't secure a choke, so let's entertain what you were saying, right? Even if he can't secure a choke, even if he can't necessarily like legit out-grapple Gegard Mousasi, a lot of the time, man, this is very strategic. He'll get on your back. He'll get in a fight-ending position. He'll put you in a spot where you look bad to where he could just rack up points. You know what I mean? So let me ask you this, because I know that it's a long shot, AJ. I mean, the odds indicate it, but once again, anything can happen in this sport. What are the odds that John Salter can win a decision, win the belt, win the middleweight championship on a decision against the Dreamcatcher, Gegard Mousasi?
Ooh, you want to talk about a reach, Derick, man. It's a pretty long shot, especially the biggest thing I've seen, or the biggest falter of John Salter, excuse the pun right there, but he's really gets tired after the first and the second round, man. You said it, like even after the first, it's a noticeable slowdown. And if you have some dude crushing distance on you, I love that expression, by the way. That is a very, very poignant little expose on Gegard Mousasi, man. But if he's able to do that and walk you down, man, imagine how it's going to be round 3, 4, 5. It's a long shot. If I had to put odds on it, man, I'd say like a 600 to 1. Yeah. It's a pretty long shot. That might be a more of a reach than the actual reach. But what do you think?
600 to 1 is pretty insane. But listen, I get what you're trying to say. I know where sometimes I remember the name I'm trying to say. Hyperbolic. I think that's what we're looking for there. But ultimately, man, I agree with you. Gegard Mousasi, I think he's going to be too much for John Salter. I think the gas tank is going to be a real issue, and it's going to become evident round 3, round 4. I don't know if it even makes it there because Mousasi, honestly, this isn't his toughest test. You know what I mean? But this is a test. You cannot discount the man named John Salter because he does have wins over Andrew Capel, submission round 3. He has a submission round 2 against Dustin Jacoby, the man aforementioned earlier. And he is a 2017 ADCC West Coast Trials winner, which is pretty impressive. Second degree BJJ black belt, most submission wins in Bellator middleweight history with 6, and he's a regional champ. However, before we give our pick, I have to say it. I can't not say it. The judo black belt in terms of Gegard Mousasi is a former Cage Warriors middleweight champion, a Dream middleweight and light heavyweight champion, and a 2-time Bellator middleweight champion. The only gold that that evaded him, that he was yet to hold on to, was the UFC gold, man. And I think he has proved that he doesn't even really need it, man, because he's got so many wins over these huge UFC champions. I mean, he's the people's champ. We already know the story for Gegard Mousasi. Give me your pick on the main event, man, on this middleweight championship matchup. And still or and new?
I think it's going to be and still. I think Gegard Mousasi gets it done. Salter, in my opinion, he has the option to have the better ground game. We'll see how it actually plays out, because if Gegard Mousasi ends up controlling the entire fight, it's going to be over from the jump. But that's going to be the thing. Will Gegard be able to do it? The longer the fight goes, the more it favors Mousasi. And for that fact, I'm going Gegard Mousasi by decision. I think it's going to be a hell of a grind out fight. We might see some times where John Salter does have the advantage, but I don't think it's going to be that long or that many options for him going forward. And I think Mousasi gets it done in the 5 rounds. What do you think, Derick? Who you got and why?
I think it's pretty interesting that you are predicting a decision victory for Mousasi. I just think it would be cool because if he did get it, that means he would have double-digit victories in knockouts, submissions, and decisions. Currently, 26 knockouts, 12 submissions, and 9 decisions, which is pretty fucking insane, bro. To have overall, my math is terrible, 47 plus 7, that is 54, right? 54 career MMA bouts, man, over 50 bouts. That's ridiculous. But I'm going to agree with you. I'm going and still. I think Gegard Mousasi is going to finish this one in impressive fashion. TKO round 3. That's how I got it. I don't think John Salter makes it out of the 3rd round. I don't think the championship rounds are seen unless both of these fighters take a really, really patient, boring approach in the first couple of rounds. But that's not the style of John Salter. And you got to do what got you to the dance. And what got him to the dance is blitzing, pressuring his opponents, putting them and making them uncomfortable. And, forcing his game plan. But with that being said, that's the picks, folks. That is Bellator 264. Now, of course, we'll be back for some UFC action next week in terms of the preview show. But of course, we have a post show that we have to do for Bellator. So we will be back live with you, breaking down the madness that occurred over here this weekend at Bellator 264. AJ. Now, one last piece of business that we got to handle, which is the fight of the night, my man. So, with all of the options that we have here, a lot of really good main card bouts. We already said it earlier. Bellator tends to be a kind of top-heavy type organization. You know, there's a lot of the A side is winning every fight. I remember I believe it was the last Bellator card we covered, AJ. I went 5-0 on my picks, and I picked all of the A side fighters, and it was just win. Hopefully we don't get a repeat of that. Hopefully it's a little bit different, but then again, I still try to do good on my picks, so hopefully it's a little bit of the same. But nonetheless, who's your fight of the night, AJ? Who's standing out to you? Who's going to have the biggest clash of styles at Bellator 264?
I'm thinking it's going to be Magomed Magomedov, the Tiger, versus Raufeon Stots, man. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. The reason I'm picking that one for fight of the night is because I see that one being the most diverse of styles. The most diverse of positions. Both fighters have the same style, so I think it's going to be a clash going that way. But as far as up and down, back and forth, I think that one's going to be fun, especially if Raufeon Stots shows up, man. If Raufeon Stots shows up, it's going to be a hell of a scrap, and we're going to be able to see Magomed show off his real, his actual impressive skill, which I think will be the kind of highlight of the night. So I'm giving that one as my fight of the night. Derick, who you got and why?
All right, well, I'm going with the co-main, man. I'm going Andrey Koreshkov versus Sabah Homasi for all of the mentioned reasons that we outlined earlier about the technical kickboxer versus the dude who's going to walk forward and look to bang, man. I think this has fireworks written all over it because if both of their wrestling nullifies each other, you have no choice but to stand up and just bang it out. And if there's anyone that we know that is gritty, that can use his grit to overpower technical capabilities, it is Sabah, the sleek, chic Homasi. The man will do a crazy dance and get knocked out 5 minutes later. Like, he does not care, man. And that's something that you need in this sport. And overall, man, just a little bit older, man. Doesn't have as much experience in the cage, man, but has a little more life experience. And sometimes that counts. So that's my fight of the night, AJ. And listen, this was an interesting matchup or interesting episode to sit here and record, like we had said earlier. It's a little difficult at times, breaking from the status quo, the UFC, the major organization that's got all the chops, all the resources for us. And when we, do this Bellator stuff, it's like a, nostalgia factor, right? It takes us back to our roots, grassroots, humble, right? Give me your last words on the process of breaking down this card before we give our exits.
Man, this one was actually a lot of fun, Derick. Like I said before, it kind of took us back to the grassroots, but it had you delve a little bit more on your own, skill of breaking things down. I watched that same fight of Emerett Cummings in the outdoor arena where the dude was filming it on his. It was interesting to be able to see how different things are. Even in that fight, there was some guy telling Cummins to knee him while the other dude is on the ground, and I was just laughing because he was like throwing the knee like crazy. I was like, "What are you doing, man?" But yeah, no. Either way, this one was a lot of fun. It was very different, specifically because I didn't have the ease of the luxury of being able to go to ESPN.com or ESPN Plus and just putting in a name and watching all their fights. Man, this one. It was nice to be able to see something different, but come on, man. Showtime, you're partnering up with Showtime, Bellator. You got to step it up just a little bit, man. Don't make it so hard for us, brother. What was your big takeaway this week, man?
I agree, man. Don't make me miss the UFC so much. Like, I should be enjoying these Bellator cards, being able to break it down just as much as the UFC. But I agree, man. Just a little bit of humbleness, you know what I mean? Brought me back. And yeah, man, when you're watching a bunch of those phone recordings or you're watching highlight clips or you're just trying to find whatever you can, you really got to dive in on like, all right, man, let's just go for your own experience, though. You know what I mean? Like, all right, I know how this style kind of works against this style. Maybe that would be a good clash. Yeah, interesting. I don't know, man. Bellator, there's a lot of variables, a lot of unknowns there. But listen, man, we got a hell of a UFC return on August 21st, my man. Jared Cannonier versus Kelvin Gastelum. Very, very interesting matchup. And I just wanted to point out a couple of matchups that the folks could look forward to before we get out of here, AJ. We got Alejandro Pantoja facing off against Brandon Royval in the flyweight division. That'll be a scrap, man. Let me ask you about this one real quickly. We got let me see, we got a lot of really good ones. So you got Ramiz Brahimaj, the man who got his ear sliced off versus Max Payne Griffin in his last bout, is making his return against Sasha Palatnikov, man, the man fighting out of Tokyo, Japan, the man with the crazy style who I think he just lost his last fight to Impa Kasanganai, man. What do you think about that? That's an interesting prospect match, right?
Oh yeah, very interesting prospect match, especially both these dudes are on the come up, man. And both of them had pretty devastating losses from the past, so it's going to be interesting to see how their they always say the comeback is better than the fall or whatever that saying is. I just butchered it, but it's going to be an interesting fight going forward, man. I'm excited for that one too.
Absolutely, folks. You know what we do here at the Bloody Water Podcast, home of the butchered quotes. You know what I'm saying? But we getting them there. We getting them. I will say just last one. This is going to be a really good matchup. This is another prospect one, but listen, this got fireworks written all over it. Might be a sleeper for UFC Fight Night 195. We got Roosevelt Roberts, man, the real savage in Roosevelt Roberts, facing off against Ignacio Bahamondes, who is a huge giant in the 155-pound division, man. That's going to be fun. It's got fireworks over it. And then lastly, AJ, man, we get the return of Clay Guida. I don't even want to mention the opponent. I just want to say we got the return of the Carpenter, Clay Guida. Shout out to that, right?
Fuck yeah, shout out to the savage, man, Clay Guida, bro. He is the shit, man. Anytime you want an exciting fight, put Clay on the card and let's get it going, man.
Absolutely. And then lastly, we're graced by the legit prospect in Luis Saldana. So it's going to be another prospect riddled, card that we got on our hands, but it's topped off with a very good main event. A lot of fun to break down, and we'll be breaking that down clearly, the week of August 21st or whatever the case may be. You get lost in the sauce sometimes. I don't know what day it is. I've been locked in my dungeon doing film study for too long. But all right, folks, drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you rock with us, if you like the breakdown, drop a like if you think that Gegard Mousasi is going to win via knockout this weekend, man. Because if so, we should have a lot of likes over here on this comment. AJ, man, that is it. Great breaking it down as always with your brother. Until next time, folks. Peace.